You join me here at Boringdon Park Golf Club for the Climate Connections Net Zero Expo, sponsored by BCR Associates. We're here to find out what it's all about, find out what net zero means to Plymouth businesses, generally have a look around and bring the event to you. Net zero, it's one of those terms people have heard. A lot of people will know exactly what it means. For some people who don't know, tell us exactly what net zero is.
Yeah, so put simply, net zero is about reducing our emissions. So it's reducing our carbon emissions or other greenhouse gases and also balancing it. So if anything we do produce, we kind of remove as well.
Yeah, great. So obviously this event today is primarily for businesses, for business owners, for companies. So I suppose net zero applies to us on a personal level in our day-to-day life, but for companies, I imagine it's a little bit harder. So what do you hope people and businesses get from this event? What's the kind of aims of it?
Yeah, so the aim of this event is, instead of talking just about net zero, we're trying to give people solutions, products, service providers, case studies, real life examples of what they can actually do. So maybe they'll be able to go away and get started and come on this journey together. So it's about sharing. We've got a wealth of knowledge in Devon, and so it's about bringing that together and making sure that people feel supported and they're able to do this journey together.
We're focused on diverting waste from landfill and turning waste from multiple waste streams back into valuable resources, which stops the quarrying of primary resources that actually the world's running out of. When I joined Recycle It Global, I didn't realise that there was a sand crisis. So sand is one of the third most used commodity in the world after water and air, and we're running out. So we need to provide an alternative before it's too late, and that's why it's so important to us. Everyone's on board with the sustainability idea and wanting to hit net zero, but it's accepting that recycled aggregates and materials might look a little bit different to a usual primary and quarried. It might not be your shiny, nice stuff that you're used to, but it hits the same quality controls and markers as anything else. Construction companies across the southwest are adopting it and finding it works just as well with primary material.
So good.
So we're getting there. I'm actually pregnant right now and I have a little one on the way. So it's important to protect the future for future generations to come.
Hi there, I'm David Cartwright. I'm Managing Director of Altilium Clean Technology. Altilium Clean Technology is all about closing the loop for electric vehicle battery recycling. Over 90% of all EV batteries are produced in China and then supplied worldwide. What we're involved in is actually taking an end-of-life battery, shredding it, producing this stuff which is what we call black mass, containing all of the critical elements required for battery manufacture. This is a solution to provide UK automotive industry with a circular solution to any vehicle that they are producing today that can then be recycled 100% into a new vehicle in the future. We are first of a kind in the UK. We are, at the scale that we're doing it, we are first of a kind in Europe, but we're doing that industrial production, commercial scale here in Plymouth, just down the road in Plimpton, and we'll be reprocessing capacity in the order of 24,000 EV batteries per year when that plant commissions. I really love living here and being around here, and I like the story, I like the vision of the company. Altilium Clean Technology resonates with me throughout, so the purpose of the company, to have zero emission, clean transport is something that I'd like to be. I'm very proud and pleased to be involved in at this stage of my career, and I look forward to delivering this project, hopefully successfully.
This is, from my perspective, I think there is so much that is wrong with the buildings that we live and work in, and we need to fix that, particularly the health part of it, but also the climate impacts of it. And so we're here today to talk about that and wanting to share that experience with the wider Plymouth community. When we look to the future and the net zero carbon future, this is, with this very slow pace of movement, we absolutely need to start now, and we need to be going for every single building that we're going for. I think that the construction industry is amazing, creative space, and we need bright, sparky people to come into it and to be able to help us solve these particular problems. When we go and talk to, whether it's the school children in the schools we've been involved with, or maybe it's the homeowners of the houses that we've done, or whatever else. It's the impact that it has on them personally is so lovely, and it goes well beyond just the impact on their bills or them feeling like it has an environmental impact. It can really it really helps them to have a better life. We do an awful lot of monitoring buildings afterwards and going and asking opinions and gaining that feedback for us to make sure that what the advice we're giving is actually going to end up with something that's tangible and really works. Was it worth that extra effort? Often, starting out on a project, we often have clients come to us and say, well, I'd love to do it, but I can't afford it, or I'd love to do it, but. And often there are things they can do, and it's not always going to full net zero, but there are always really tangible things that they can put into their project from an early stage that will mean that the outcomes will be so much better. I am an eternal optimist, but at the same time, the reality is pretty stark. We often get caught up in the things that we can't do, and we really need to start acting on the things that we do. So where do we have the ability to make changes, and what things can we? Because the starting is almost the most important thing. And as I said, for people when they're looking at whether it's their own homes or their business developments, or maybe, for local authorities looking at their housing developments and things like this, it's the imagination that lets them down, and that we need to actually just be demanding things that are better, and then the industry will respond and we will do it.
There's so much talk about climate and things like that, and so many people don't know where to start. So that's where I come in. I try and help people understand where their emissions are, what they can do to reduce them, and just things like that. And I just help people through the entire process. If you reduce your waste, you reduce your carbon emissions. If you just implement newer machines, you reduce your energy usage, you reduce your carbon emissions. Little things make a massive difference. And all that I do is show them that picture. And I show them exactly what you do and what you can do and how it makes that difference.
Attain Zero is now a sister company of Rails About, but we started off as a client. So we engaged with Attain Zero to do our own scope 1 and 2 and 3 emission calculations. We wanted to start looking at our carbon footprint just from an ethical standpoint, really, and seeing if we can do things to reduce it. Being engineers, we're data driven, so you want to have some numbers to start off with. And that gives you a point to go forward. So, yeah, ethically, I think we've all got a responsibility to do our best. I think there's a financial imperative as well. The fact is, if you're operating efficiently as a company, even from an environmental point of view, it's going to save you money. So, simple things like changing to LED lighting things, we've seen our energy usage come down. So there's a basic sort of fundamental imperative there. It helps us as a company. And then finally, there's a legal one. At the moment, there's no requirement on us to undertake this, but it's coming. So you might as well get ahead of the curve. Engaging with Attain Zero just made it easy. Suddenly you realise that just starting with your scope 1 and 2 calculations is actually really easy to do. When we got Zoe on board, she quickly went through, did our past sort of 3 years scope 1 and 2 calculations, gave us some real data, and that sort of straight away energizes you and motivates you, because you've got some data, you can see where you're at. We found that we'd actually made some savings as well, even unintentionally, sort of some of it. And once you start that and you realize actually it's not that difficult, it's not that complicated, there's just a process to follow, and having someone on board like Attain Zero to guide you through that makes it really easy.
Bigger companies are asking these questions. Now, the bigger companies are where the majority of the emissions are. And the fact that they're putting it on their supply chain and asking these questions just shows that they don't care what governments say, they want to do it for themselves. And that's what really shows optimism, because no matter what governments decide, people still want to do this. And it's really, really invigorating to see that, and to see people care about this, because their supply chain cares about it. And so that's always really good to see.
I don't get the driving to the gym to get your exercise. I can get my exercise on the way to work and on the way home again, and it's important. If we all make little tiny changes, it will help everybody in the long run. I think the first step is not to just default to the car. And that's our natural default method, is to go to the car because it's convenient. So think about it. Could you walk? Is it under a mile? You could walk. Majority of people could walk, so walk. Is it dry? What's the forecast looking for the rest of the week? Could you do this? And if you can't, some people have children to take on a multiple journey round. But what about the weekend? What about that evening run? Do you need to use that car? Could it be a different mode? So just not having the car as a default setting, it's just too convenient, and just to think a little bit outside of the box. So that's our first ask of people. We actually do have a good transport system in Plymouth. I think the expectation is that buses are always late, and actually 86% of our buses run on time. So obviously there are some that are late, but that's a lot because of traffic, which are the cars. So it's a problem. We've got some really good cycle routes in Plymouth, and they're expanding all the time. We've got the new cycle maps, and people can take that and look at that as well. I think if you have a bad experience on a bus, people go, I'm never using a bus ever again. People have bad experiences in cars every day. We're all stuck in traffic. We've all been late to something because of the traffic, but we still just get in the car. But anything else, we have one tiny bad experience. No, I'm never doing it again. So it's expectations, isn't it? But that's what people's perception is. It's terrible, and actually, it's got quite a good system. So you can go onto plymouth.gov website, and there's a link there to Plymotion. So we can send out individuals information, we can send out the high vis, we can come to businesses and speak to your staff, we go to lots of events. So we went to 58 events last year, so if you see us, come and speak to us, we're free. You can email us. So there's lots of ways to get in contact with us. I'm 46. If I can start cycling to work, other people can. I think I wouldn't have ever thought I would have done that. But I did it once. Oh, it's not actually that bad. And then actually the third time I did it was horrendous. It got soaking wet, but then the fourth, it was much better. So it's like, don't give up, just baby steps. I think people are realising they've got to make a change, but it hasn't got to be every day. Take baby steps, integrate it into your life, and then it'll just become standard.
So my job focuses very much on operational activities. So I cover elements like energy, water, waste, green travel, fair trade, biodiversity and conservation. And collectively, we work very hard to reduce our impact on the environment at the university. And that's doing a huge amount of reporting through league tables to kind of set our position within the sector, the education sector. But also, like I said, to influence businesses around us as well. And we do that, I think, through Plymouth Net Zero Group and coming to great conferences like this. So personally, I mean, I've always been driven on the sustainability agenda and been very passionate about it from a very young age. So I suppose that's taken me through my career, and now work at obviously the University of Plymouth to help support their agenda and their mission to reduce their impact. So looking at decarbonising the estate and the campus, trying to look at technology that's installed within our buildings. We do a massive amount of refurbishing rather than necessarily building new, which obviously helps with embodied carbon, but also trying to stay ahead of the game and be innovative in terms of our mission and values that the university have. So globally we're doing really well as the UK within different areas against the Sustainable Development Goals. I think there is a lot of hope, and I think having a target to work towards is really influential in terms of reducing our impact and trying to stay ahead of the game, and tracking and monitoring targets is very important. And I think hopefully as we take each year as it comes, we stay ahead of the game and continue to do that.
So the construction industry and the built environment have a massive impact on the carbon emissions of the UK generally, and I just think we really need to look at all the different ways in the way that we design buildings and we manufacture them, components that go into them, the way that we actually construct buildings. There's so many different things that we can do to reduce carbon generally, and we need to just take any opportunity we can. I feel like as architects we need to work with our clients to help and educate them and engage them in that decision making right at the very early stages of the project, and then we can make even better impact on the carbon reduction of the design and ultimately the building. I've just recently worked on the crematorium here in Plymouth, and before that I was working on a children's nursery for a university, so anything and everything in between. I remember when I was result winning a Blue Peter badge for designing a poster to encourage people to recycle their waste. So I think I grew up in Cornwall, maybe very in touch with nature and the natural environment around us. So I think I've always just really cared about where we live and how we inhabit space. And I think us humans have forgotten that we are actually animals, we are part of nature. So the climate emergency declarations that happened back in 2019 helped to sort of trigger those thoughts and processes in our work and our thinking, and it's elevated that topic to the forefront of everybody's minds. I was being invited to some meetings across Devon with leaders of the council, defence, the NHS, all sorts of people, and we were talking about how we could encourage people to reduce carbon generally in all their lives, different groups of lives, and I was there representing architecture. Then COVID hit, so we were stuck at home for a while, and then people started using webinars as a way of communicating that. So it developed into a series of webinars, which was only going to be 6 initially, and then it went on for the whole 2 years that we were stuck at home in and out of lockdowns, and there were about 30 webinars, and most of them are recorded and available on the website under Watch Again.
So what does Future Plymouth 2030 look like? What are some of the things you're looking at now?
Well, at the time we were looking at different topics like biodiversity, or what does it mean to go all electric, or how do people actually get around sustainable transport options. And I was inviting different specialists in that area, whether they were an engineer, an architect, a client, a council officer, to talk about it from their perspective, and then it led to really interesting Q&A at the end. So I need to reinvigorate Future Plymouth 2030. I think maybe in 2026 we'll start a series of conversations about, how are we doing? We've only got a few years left to 2030 now. We can count it on one hand, actually examine what progress has been made. There's a lot of reports out there from the scientists who are obviously measuring carbon emissions regularly now, every year, reporting on it, and we know that we're not doing enough. We're not doing enough quickly enough, seriously enough. So actually, how do we make that happen? How do we drive the governments to make those standards higher so that it's non-negotiable that buildings have to be designed to better standards? I think that might be my little challenge for 2026.
We'll want to actually increase awareness of renewables and how that can support you in your own home, as well as kind of the business side. Some people don't actually believe there is a climate emergency, so that's one huge barrier that we kind of have to overcome. Well, why should I actually look at renewables? What's the point? Can I actually make a difference to the whole world? And I think we're helping people understand that a bit more. Barriers as well, obviously, affordability is one, and again, why should I spend my money on doing something? What are the benefits? And there are benefits, so we talk to people about that, not just for the environment, but actually, people can save money by having renewables within their home or business. So I was speaking to Nieve from Climate Connections and found out about the event and said, how can we get involved, basically. As a company, Eljay Energy are really passionate about making a difference locally. We cover Devon and Cornwall, but kind of more locally as well within our local community. And that's why we wanted to be here to be part of that community today. And I think it's been brilliant. It's been it's just been buzzing all day long. So many brilliant conversations. Really, really pleased. They've done a fantastic job. Events like this actually showing and the amount of people that are here, not just the people exhibiting, but the people attending, shows that people care and people are listening and wanting that information and wanting to get involved. So that's the biggest kind of, for me, this is really personally and business wise, this is brilliant today, just to show that there's hope for all of us, really.
So there's a lot of businesses across the country who don't really understand how energy is used in their building, the consequences of it, how they can get it green and make it renewable, and get some information and data on it. So we go in, And that's what we do for people, is give them visibility of their energy, how much they're using, the emissions, the costs, so they can actually do something about it. This is our world. We focus on manufacturing because they got big energy spends. It's absolutely killing them. The price of energy is through the roof. Everybody probably hears we've got the most expensive energy in Europe, and our manufacturers need to be kept competitive. If we can come up with practical, and we do come up with practical ideas for them to reduce their energy consumption, which reduces their costs, reduces their emissions, it's a win-win-win right across the board. They can deliver net zero while being more competitive, having a competitive advantage, and hitting their cost targets. It's like I say, it's a win-win-win. Everybody's busy. Everybody busy. There's no businesses out there sitting around on their chairs going, oh, I wonder what I'll do today. Everybody's frantically busy, and this does seem to be one of those where there's little knowledge about it. So it's in the too difficult to do box, so it gets put off until it becomes critical. So we really engage. In fact, the lady I was just talking to, it's been put off at their factory until they need to do something, because the costs are going through the roof. Everybody needs to reduce their costs, and the only way to do that in our world is reduce your consumption. And they don't know what their consumption is. So generating that sort of visibility is really key in businesses, so they can see what's going on. And frankly, once you can see, then that motivates you. If you're driving down the road and you see a brick wall in front of you, you do something about it. If you're driving through fog, you're going to hit the brick wall. I walk into manufacturing places and they're doing the complicated stuff, unbelievably clever stuff. Net zero is really just, it's counting. In counting, understanding what's going on and doing something about it. And the energy world is getting better and better and better. I mean, 10 years ago, if you thought about putting solar panels on your roof, that's really expensive. And some people remember from 10 years ago, oh, we can't do that, that's not cost effective. Really? Have you looked? It is actually cheaper, I didn't believe this, but it's actually cheaper to fence your garden with solar panels than it is to go to B&Q and buy fence panels that are wood. I used to work in big international companies. I was involved in sort of energy management and I kept asking questions. Why haven't you got that information? Why? You're asking me to do something, but I have no information to work on. Why? And that was really sort of spurred me to look at big companies. This is a massive pharmaceutical company. I thought, if you guys haven't got a handle on it, what on earth's handling going on at SME level? And it was actually in a pub one night with somebody I knew. He thought he was being ripped off by his energy supply. He had no idea. And I said, look, let me have a look at it, because you're basically killing the Friday vibe. Look, buy me a beer, I'll have a look at it. And he was. It was chaos. I went, this is really easy. You don't understand what you're looking at, do you? But no, can you do it, please? So that was 25 years ago. And pretty much I had the same conversation without the beer with quite a lot of companies around the country on exactly the same premise of, we don't know about it, can you do this for us? It's not all about tree huggery, it's actually making our businesses more competitive, making the employee, making more jobs, making more money internally in the Plymouth area. If there are more jobs, more money, Plymouth's a better place. And that can be done through actually cutting the emissions, which makes our manufacturers around here much more competitive. It's really just cutting out waste. It's amazing. I go into factories and they're sort of, I say, tell me, at home, do you moan at the kids that they leave everything on? Oh God, yeah, kids, eh? So why are you doing it in your factory at a scale of 10 times? One guy actually explained to me, I said, just you leaving your factory of a night, the energy that gets used at 3 o'clock in the morning is more than the entire estate you live on. Would that be acceptable if you went home and found every house with every light burning all day, every day? Wouldn't you think that was odd? But it's not odd in your factory. Everything we can do in this country, in fact across the world, could be done. In fact, 30% of the energy reductions to deliver net zero could be done by just turning stuff off. 45% of net zero global targets could be done just through the most basic energy efficiency.